Hello everyone, getting into the second part of my review of Tears of the Kingdom. And this part is where it's going to be a little bit more my personal opinion. I'm going to try to kind of contrast with a more constructive view, but this game just makes it so I have to do both. Must do both. So I'm going to go through the story. I'm going to try to hold back a bit on giving spoilers. When I start to go down that road, I'll let you know. But this game, for me, this game fixed so much of what was missing in Breath of the Wild. That felt too much like there was no story, it was more of a history lesson, and yet it wasn't. Almost every scene in it was a flashback, and very few of the flashbacks really had significance to the story. This one fixed that. Was it the best? No. Was it up there? Definitely. My favorite Zelda game has been Twilight Princess. That was the story that got me most. One thing that was so great about that one that the other games might have a hint of, might touch on, is that one really let you see Link react. It gave him more substance. Without a voice, it kind of makes it feel like he's empty in a sense. You can try to put your own look of him in there, but it's not going to always fit, and it's going to be a little lacking. Twilight Princess, you saw a lot more of him reacting to things and reacting emotionally at times. That was almost entirely absent in Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom brings back some of it. There's still a lot lacking in my opinion, but you can definitely see more, and there's more he does within the cutscenes. He's not as much of just an observer as he is in Breath of the Wild. That's one of the great things about this, is it took a step up there. It's still not the best, but it's better. Along those lines, all the characters are more fleshed out and a little more well built than they were in Breath of the Wild. Couple cases they could have done a little bit more, but in general, they did a much better job this time. Particularly Princess Zelda. She was the one who was more developed in Breath of the Wild, but this took it further. Even though there were characters I kind of liked, it was more of I wanted to get to know them in Breath of the Wild, but I never got a chance. This one you get to. And even one or two characters I wasn't as crazy about, they developed a bit more to where I could enjoy them a bit more in this. And even think a little bit more of them. And yet, they didn't change them. They didn't try to, quote-unquote, fix them. They just did a better job of fleshing them out, and I thought it was great. Now, the story structure. The other nice thing about this is, instead of flashbacks, you have Zelda's memories. And this is not about another story that happened previously. This is about this story of what happens to Zelda in relation to what's happening to Link at different points in time. Now let me say, I normally cannot stand time travel stories. Too often, especially now, current times, they use that as a scapegoat. It's a way out. It's an easy way to make it work even if you have a paradox. But really, you're just using a paradox to hide a paradox. And I can't stand it. However, there are a few movies, books that do it in a way where it's not giving them this freedom to be sloppy. Instead, it's used in a way that really fits in well instead of making the story fit into it. And it's not used to cheat, such as 12 Monkeys, Michael Crichton's book Timeline, Sphere, etc. There are those few where they do it well and they don't use it to cheat. Tears of the Kingdom, luckily, is one of those. For the most part, you could even take out time travel and just make it this separate world, this other dimension, and have almost the exact same story, with one part being an exception. And that part, the way it works, what it does, works really well at still staying consistent. As I was saying, this idea of these two separate times, almost treated as though they happen at once because of the effect they're having on one another, really makes it work. And keeps it from being these lost memories. It makes it more of just you finding out what's happening somewhere else, and then you acting on that. So it really works better. And one thing I'll say, you can do these in different orders. You can take things in different sequences. I got lucky. For those of you who are not going to want to hear the spoilers, I'll tell you right now, I would suggest go to the Deku Tree. Go where he guides you. Once you have the Master Sword, then go and find the tears that are the memories. That's my suggestion, because that's what I did, and it really made it work well. One thing I did kind of make a mistake on is with these tears that are the memories you go out and find. I didn't take them all in order. I took one a little too soon, instead of putting them in order as they're shown in the room that guides you to where these tears are. Take it in order from left to right. That's the best way to do it, at least in my opinion. Because unlike Breath of the Wild, these memories really have a sequence. They really have a structure, which is one of the things that make it so much better. So now, let's get into the spoilers. Let's get into the actual story. As you see in the previews, this starts off with Link and Zelda going in underneath Hyrule Castle and finding the quote-unquote remains of Ganondorf. And he is just decaying, in a sense. His body is just deteriorating, crumbled, and when you come down, you wake him up. What he says to you, you won't understand unless you go and you watch it again after playing through the game. Then you'll understand a bit more of why he says what he says. He speaks out against you. He kind of starts pulling back in his power. And in the process, Zelda starts to fall down into ruins. The Master Sword is damaged. And a hand that was holding Ganondorf in place saves Link. You find out, as she was falling, Zelda was sent into the past, to the very start of Hyrule, and meets the very first king and queen of Hyrule. Link stays where he is, but meets the spirit of this first leader of Hyrule, who is King Rauru. And with Rauru, you also find out is his wife, Sonia. But in the past, I was concerned, because they start talking as though maybe Zelda was sent into the past to change things. Luckily, that's not the case. You find out she was sent in the past to do something, but not change things. As Link, you start going, you start trying to find the 4 sages that will come and assist you in fighting Ganondorf. Now, these 4 sages, 3 of them are the same as what we had in Breath of the Wild. However, one, whose name is Tolan, who is a young Rito, is one of the sages, but he's not the one from Breath of the Wild, which makes sense to me, because the one who helped you in Breath of the Wild wasn't that big of a deal. He wasn't developed very well. He didn't really get to know him much. The others, you got a little bit. You got a little bit more than him. So it kind of makes sense to me that he's the one they'd be willing to sort of replace. However, Riju comes back, Sidon comes back, Yunobo comes back. And I'll say, Riju and Yunobo, I feel like they did a lot to help develop them further. They did with Sidon, but I'd say he was one of the ones who was already a little bit more well done in Breath of the Wild. So they did make improvements in this. And I'll say, Yunobo, to me, was just annoying in Breath of the Wild. However, what they do with him here, it really makes him more understandable in a sense. And I appreciated that. Now, continuing on. At the same time as you do this, or even after this, which is what I did, but I don't think this really matters too much, the sequence between the temples and the memories. As you go through the memories, what you find out is, in the past, Ganondorf came to try to take over Hyrule, obtained one of the tears by killing Sonya, and took hers. And that is how he got the power he has. As it went, he kept winning, and they didn't know if they could defeat him, and in the end, 7 sages faced him. That's including Rauru and Zelda. And to stop him, Rauru had to sort of give himself up to freeze both of them in time, to keep them both in a place where they couldn't do anything. They were in that sort of stasis. And after that, Zelda, as you find out, gave herself up. One thing that's learned as you go through the story, the memories, is that these little tokens, these little tears that they carry, are actually ones that you can swallow. But if you swallow, you turn into a dragon. And you sort of lose yourself, you lose your identity. You're just this creature. Not entirely the case as you find out, but in general, yes. After Rauru traps Ganondorf in this stasis state, Zelda realizes what she needs to do. Because she is given the Master Sword through time. It's sent back to her so that she can take it. And what she decides to do is turn herself into a dragon. Have the sword sort of in her as this dragon. And over time, restore it, heal it, and make it even stronger than it was. Which is eventually what you have to do. You have to go to this dragon that ends up being Zelda and pull the sword out. Which is why I personally am glad I did that first before going through the story, because it was really an interesting thing to find out that this dragon I got the sword from was Zelda. It was neat to have that twist sort of come after the fact. So once you've gotten all the memories, you've got your sages, you then find you have to go and get this other sage who is from the past, who is one of the leaders who was helping the sages and part of the sages. And she then joins your team and you go in to take out Ganondorf. When you do this, and he comes to the point where you've pretty much defeated him, he swallows his tear and turns himself into a dragon, and you have to ultimately face that. However, face it alongside the help of the dragon Zelda became. Once you defeat Ganondorf, Rauru and Sonya come to you in spirit, grab the hand you were given, and use it to bring Zelda back to who she was. When Zelda comes back, she doesn't remember anything of what happened while she was a dragon, and is just shocked she got to come back. Now, for me, I was so thrilled throughout this, because almost everything that happened was what I was hoping would happen. I wanted to see a different kind of story. I wanted to see a Zelda game where finally Zelda doesn't fully win and doesn't come back fine. Something happens. Not necessarily she dies. I was hoping it would be something different. And as I learned more of what was going on, that idea of her becoming a dragon sounded perfect, and I was hoping that would happen. When it did, I was overjoyed, because that was exactly where I hoped the story would go. However, the end didn't go where I hoped. I was kind of hoping she would stay in that state. I was kind of hoping it would be like, that is the Legend of Zelda. She is now this legendary creature. I loved the idea of that. I thought that would be great. But I kind of knew there's no way they're going to do that. No way. I thought there was no way they'd even take her down that road. When they did, I was shocked. But they didn't end it that way, which got surprised. And I'll say this. The story is really good. I personally think it could have been better, technically. I think it could have been better from a critical point of view if she had stayed as that, and I think it would have also been neat on top of that if Link had to give himself up as well. Now I know that's going down the road of tragedy, but just that epic style I think would have been so neat to see in one of the Zelda games. However, so glad they didn't make it better. I would give it a 9.1 out of 10. However, this story got me in a way I didn't expect. I've got a lot of favorites. Some of those games are big ones like this, others are indie games, such as The Last Campfire. Let me say this first. I'm a writer. As a writer, from all I've done, all I've studied, one of the big things that is a huge reminder I needed, and I think especially today, writers need, is how the most important thing is the story and or the characters. Get that right. Themes, morals, messages, etc. Those things must be secondary, because those things are useless if the story and characters are not done well. Those messages, those symbols, those themes will hold no weight without a good foundation. However, well done, great game, fun to play, then it's a good game. It's going to go up there on my list. But it's not going to reach the top. It's not going to go into my top 10, top 20, unless there's something more to it. Unless there's something it's showing, saying, and it's not just a fun time, good experience, but an encouragement or a lesson. Once it actually has a real impact, that's when I'll put it at the top. But the rarest of the rare, are the ones that actually change you. The ones that really teach you something. Something you hadn't recognized or noticed before. And I had only 2 of those before. I'd only seen 2 games do that to me. Tears of the Kingdom has become the 3rd. As I said, Link, they could have developed further. Some of the other characters, they could have added a little bit more. However, Zelda was the one they really did. Zelda was the one I connected with. The reason I love that idea of Zelda turning into a dragon and it ending with her becoming this legend of this dragon that is now almost a guardian of the kingdom. I love that because that made her sacrifice, made what she did carry more weight. You look at other games where this kind of thing happened, such as Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess. Zelda sort of gave herself up. However, in those games, she always sort of had that expectation Link would come and save her. This one she didn't. This one she fully expected this was it, and she didn't care. She was going give Link what he needed to save the kingdom and stop Ganondorf. The final scene before the credits got me because you could see she was completely in shock. She was confused, she was lost, but she was still there. I don't want to go in details of why I connect so well with this, but I'll say it struck me not just because of how I connected with it, but also because I realized what was missing in the other endings wasn't the fact that she came out fine, it was that she had expected that she hadn't truly been trying to offer that complete sacrifice. This time she did. She had no intention of coming back. It really gave a lot more weight to it, and it made so that lack, giving it that sort of constant legendary stature, just didn't matter. Because I saw what really mattered is what did she intend to do. That's what defined it as such a great act, was that she intended for that to happen. If somebody had forced her to, it wouldn't mean as much. I had hoped this game would be a step up from Breath of the Wild. I had hoped from little hints and things that looked like it could be, it was going to have a connection with Twilight Princess. It didn't. I'm glad because it did more. I'll still have to say I think Twilight Princess is the better story. Personally, I think it's the better game by only a couple points. But for me, personally, Tears of the Kingdom is one of only 3 10s out of 10. The reason I have to say that is because I don't know if it's going to reach anybody else the way it did me. I don't know if it's going to touch people the same way it did me. I've only had maybe 4 games bring me to tears. Tears of the Kingdom did it. It reached that level. So great game, great story. Really far better than Breath of the Wild and some of their others. Maybe not the most well written, well done, but I'll claim it's the best. I'll see you guys later. God bless.